recording. Okay. So this information session is based on a grant that the Orleans County Conservation District has with USDA NRCS through their Regional Conservation Partnership Program. And one of the new elements in the 2018 Farm Bill for the RCPP program is for partners to propose to NRCS the creation of foregone income practices. And so that's what Jeff and I and other partners have done, is we've proposed this foregone income, double cropping, shorter day corn practice that is now available for farmers in the Memphremagog and Tomophobia watersheds in Orleans County. And for the Orleans County Conservation District, our mission is to improve soil and water quality. And so this really helps us work toward meeting our mission, because this practice plants a shorter day corn and thus the cover crop goes on earlier. And so there is more residue cover throughout the winter and early spring, with increased growth of that cover crop in the fall. And I think we also really were interested in creating this program with Jeff, because we do also see that and hope that we can show an economic benefit to farmers also, so that it sort of hits multiple sweet spots in terms of conservation, but then also can help improve economics and forages on the farm. Or available feed sources on the farm. So for today, this is sort of the first launch of the program. I've been talking to a lot of the farmers on the call and a lot of farmers in the watershed about this program, but this is sort of our official launch. And so our intent for today is just to have Jeff talk about the work that he's been doing with farmers in Franklin County on this practice, to kind of go through what are the different cultural practices that would change, and what are some of the benefits and some of the considerations that need to be thought through before signing up for this. And then after that, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the program details. And if folks are interested, I will reach out to people to set up some technical assistance visits with Jeff and I to talk particularly about the farm and what current corn you grow and what field this might work on, so that we can sort of take a deeper dive on the farm if people want to learn more. So that's kind of my vision. So for our session today, I just wanted to mention, if you can see on my little slide here, we do have plans to do like question and answer after each talk that's given, but if you have a burning question, or if you want to raise a question, this is all pretty informal. Jeff can pause and answer any questions at any time, so you can either pop in, or I can keep track of people's raised hands. If you don't know how to raise your hand, if you go down to the icon that has the reactions down here and click on that, it'll give you the option to raise your hand. So I can keep track of that. And then of course you can put anything in the chat also to help sort of expand the discussion. So the first thing I wanted to do, and Brad and Nicole and Merle, you might not like this, but I was hoping to just hear from you guys first what your, let me fix my slides here. What your current cropping practices are, just so that Jeff can get a feel for who's on the call. And I'm also just really interested in this, since I have been spending a lot of time on shorter day corn, what farmers' current practices are. So Brad, I know you're on the phone and you can't see this, but maybe I'll have you go first. So I was just gonna, have each farmer kind of explain their current cropping practices and then let Jeff dive in. So Brad, the questions are, what are your current what are the current days corn that you grow? And what is the typical corn planting and harvest date? Do you grow cover crops, and do you hire out any of these activities? So those are the 4 questions I just wanted to hear briefly from each farmer to help kind of frame the discussion as we go forward. So Brad, the first question, what day corn do you currently grow?
First of all, good morning, Jeff, and everybody else that's on the call. And we typically grow 85 to 92. You know, we've tried the 96 and longer, and it just hasn't worked out. So we're basically under 92 days. And you know, we plant about 650 to 700 acres, depending on which, you know, any one year. But, you know, we've tried the longer day corn. It just doesn't seem to get, you know, we just don't have the 3 days to get it there. So anyways, that's my answer to that one.
Okay, and when is your typical planting date and harvest date?
Well, we shoot for the 15th of May to start planting. That doesn't always happen. We have gone. We've started some. We've planted some on the 10th before. But you know, we figure if we get it in by the end of May, we're going to be okay. Harvest date, you know, not really. I'm going to say the 20th of September to the 25th, we usually start. But as everyone knows, corn's an expensive crop to grow. And, you know, we're typically waiting for a nutritionist to check it and make sure it's ready to go. So we're not cutting it too early. So, but, you know, usually we're all in the bunk by October 1st to the October 5th date.
Thanks, Brad. And you can't see these slides, but there's a picture of you on this slide.
How do I look?
Oh, looks great.
Good. That's all that really counts.
And then the third question is, do you currently grow cover crops, which you do? And then the last question is, do you hire out these activities, which you do, right?
We do. You know, we're typically the last 2 or 3, 4 or 5 years, we're putting in about 300 acres of cover crop. And, you know, that's over the years, it's been successful and not so successful, depending when we get it in. And we hire out our planting and our chopping. So I guess that would be yes on, you know, the cropping part of it. And we don't typically, you know, we kind of have to follow, you know, the guy that does our custom cropping and our planting, you know, he's got other customers too. So we're, you know, kind of working around that and the weather. So that's just the way it works out. And
right.
Anyways, that's it.
Great, thanks, Brad. Merle, do you want to just answer these questions for us, if you wouldn't mind? Merle, are you there? Okay, Nicole, are you there? Can you answer these questions for us?
I can try quietly. Can you hear me? I have Henry sleeping on me.
Okay.
We're like 86 day to 92 day. And planting is usually right around May 10th. And harvesting is usually the last week of September. And then we do cover crops. And we don't hire out.
Thank you.
How many acres? How many acres?
65-ish.
Okay.
Merle, are you there? Well, guess that's
Oh,
it.
that's loud.
Okay. Well, I guess Merle might be tied up with something. So, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Jeff, if you want to share yours.
Okay. Can folks see that?
Yes.
See if I can start this from the beginning. There. So I think most folks know Jeff Sanders. I work with UVM Extension out of the St. Albans office. And if I look like I'm not looking directly at the screen, it's because I have two screens and I use my big screen because I hate looking at a laptop screen. So I'm just off center, looking at the presentation. So I've been cover cropping since I started at UVM. Heather and I did the helicopter thing way back in, I think, 2012 or 2013. And I know a lot of people cover crop before that, but we've done extensive amounts of cover cropping.
Yeah, I'm gonna just spread a little bit and try to listen to this thing.
So thousands and thousands of acres. And about 5 years ago, we started to get into this double cropping and double cropping cover crops. And so we haven't really done any research per se on it, but we've been working with farms that are interested in extending their forages. So we've been working with I think this year 4 or 5 farms we double cropped on this fall. And so that's kind of what we've been up to. Need to do something with this thing. Get that out of the way. Okay. So this is my first slide. This is a presentation I put together a few years ago, and I just kind of updated it for today and included some things that we've learned since then. But so double cropping is a way to really take cover cropping and turn it into a revenue or a forage source. And it is, if it's done right, it's an excellent extra feed source. And if you talk to nutritionalists, they'll tell you that you shouldn't use it as a main source of forage, but more of an extender. So I guess it's whether you double crop or not depends on, I think, a little bit about your feed situation. If you have lots of extra feed every year, then the idea of double cropping and the extra work it involves may not be appealing. But if you're in a situation where you are scraping by or you have to buy feed, this is a viable option if you can meet some of the things that have to be done to make it work right. But here, the picture on the left is a bunker of double crop rye, and the picture on the right, just, it's a very lush and wet crop. But the cows do love it, and we'll talk about that as we go through. I think the reason it's shouldn't be considered as a main source of forage is just because it would make the ration quite wet. Typically this stuff's getting harvested in the mid-20s for dry matter. It's wet, which creates some issues, which we'll talk about. But cows do love it. It's wet. So it's really hard to dry because it's got so much leaf in it. It's super lush. So I'm going to go to the next slide. So here is some cover crop taken a few years ago that was planted for double crop, and you can see that the ground from a cover crop point of view The ground is, I think this was after snowed and it melted off. That's why it kind of looks flat. But the ground is 100% covered with cover crop. So from a environmental NRCS state funding point of view, really the best cover crop that we can put down is a double crop cover crop, because we're seeding that heavy. We're putting that down depending on when we seed it. We've had good results at 85 pounds if it's seeded early September, but really we're looking at 100 to 120 pounds of seed per acre to get it to look like this. So this is just a field that was double cropped a few years ago, and here's a field that was double cropped a few weeks ago. And there's a little bit thin here, but it's right on it's the entrance to the field, and it may not have got quite enough seed. This is another field. This farm's been double cropping for 5 years, and they've actually come to depend on the double crop. So, and we'll talk about the things that they do to make sure that happens. So this is not put down with a fancy seeder or anything extravagant. They don't even use a drill. What they do is they use a harrow with an air seeder on it. So they just, I think this farm, different farms do it differently, but on these fields here, the corn came off, the manure went on, the field was harrowed once, and then it was seeded and lightly harrowed again. And then it was rolled with a roller. And that's it. That's what you get. So there's a couple of fields that were done this fall. So, and then you think about the larger system, and double crops do work into a no-till corn system quite well. So you would harvest this double crop off early May, like up your way in the Northeast Kingdom, mid-May, probably right when you're harvesting the corn. I'm not harvesting the corn, but right when you're planting corn, you would just take this off, and then you would just no-till your corn right into the stubble. And depending on the weather, it's important to do it so the ground won't be baked when you take that off. But if we have a hot, dry spring like we've had the last couple of years, within a couple of days that ground's going to get really hard. So folks are really just harvesting it off on the one day and planting it the same day or the next day, and right into the stubble. And then they would just spray the herbicide when it greens back up. You would just spray it down with glyphosate and whatever residual or not, whatever. But it works well. Tonnage, you do give up probably a little bit of tonnage on the corn because it might not be planted quite as early as you would. But the feed quality of the double crop more than makes up for that. So here's a field that was just planted, and here it is a little bit later in the season. So people, we'll talk a little bit about what the double crop is for feed, because people are concerned about quality and quantity and things like that. So I just have a few feed samples that were taken off of a farm. The first one is just a first cut grass, so you can see the moisture. I think the things to look at are ash content. Some folks are concerned about how much dirt you're putting in the feed off of the cornfield. And I think that's why it's important to roll it. is two things: roll it, get as flat as you can. You're gonna mow it a little higher than you would a hayfield, and you're gonna merge it. You're not gonna put a ground driven rake on that field. You're gonna try to merge that if it's possible. So here's just you guys have all seen samples. Here's a first cut grass sample. Digestibility data here. Lignin kind of stocky. Dry matter, it's a little bit dry. Got a fair amount of ash in it, just first cut. One thing to look at is like the phosphorus levels. So this is pulling out some level of phosphorus on the hay crop. I'm not sure. Well, it's 15. I think it's 15 pounds per dry matter ton at this level. But so then you go to, we'll just look. So then you got an alfalfa first cut. And the numbers, the protein level's a little higher. This is also dry. This looks like it got away from them a little bit. Stockier, a lot of lignin, good protein, good sugars. And then phosphorus again. On our side of the state, everything's phosphorus based. So that's like an alfalfa first cut, pretty decent stuff. Protein almost 20%. So then they go to a rye double crop and look at the data there. So protein's good. Lignin's pretty decent. NDFD is pretty digestible. Dry matter is super low. It's wet. That's the issue with it. It's wet. And the ash levels are a little higher. Nutritionists I talked to said anything over 10% you should be concerned about. And not that this is sky high, but it's a little bit high. And the phosphorus numbers are higher, so it's pulling more phosphorus out of the soil. So there's a rye double crop, and here's a triticale double crop, which is similar to the rye. I think it's a little more similar, a little more digestible than the rye. I know it's more palatable than the rye. Cows like to eat it better. This sample is a little bit lower in protein, but the protein levels change so fast day to day once in that window of harvest. So this could be just a couple days past prime, just coming out of the boot stage or something, going into flower. Ash content's a little bit lower, similar to the haylages, similar to the alfalfa and the grass. Dry matter's still wet, and phosphorus levels a little bit lower. I think I have another. Yeah, here's another triticale, similar numbers, and the ash is a little lower again. But so it's a good feed. It's a good feed crop. And then I just have one I just threw up from a farm from this year. And so the numbers hold kind of the same. Proteins, this is rye. Dry matter's wet. You can't dry the stuff. You mow it out wide on date. So you hit your window and you mow it out wide. You let it sit for a day. Usually the second day you're merging it and chopping it, or the third day you're merging it and chopping, depending on your window of dry weather. But it's going to be wet, and that's why it's a summer feed. You got to feed it out over the summer before it turns butyric on you. Ash content in this sample is fairly high. And I looked at some other samples, they weren't as high, but there is some risk there. This was merged, not raked, and you still pick some up. Again, it's pulling out quite a bit of phosphorus, and this has the NDF-D as a percent of NDF, and 74 is super good. Anything above 70. So what happens is this feed is very, very, very digestible, and that's why it's good for the cow. Like, people put it up for heifer feed. It's you don't, most farms don't really need heifer feed. They need high quality dairy feed, and the double crop put in at the right time makes very good dairy feed. So this is just a summary of some of the samples to look at. You can see the grass and alfalfa, right? It's just the same data, just looking at it different altogether. And I don't have the ash in here, but it depends on how you're managing it, and you are probably gonna have a little higher ash content in the double crop. But you can see that the lignin numbers are really good. So it's really leafy, and so it's super digestible. I guess that's kind of what I'm getting at from a nutrition point of view. It feeds out well in a ration with other things. I definitely wouldn't feed it straight to cows. It's too rocket fuel-y. It's very hot feed. So kind of like BMR corn. So now I'm going to talk a little bit. If anyone has any questions, they should just ask them at any time. I'm going to talk a little bit about yields and cost to produce. As far, like, I'm not farming now. I used to farm, but I know the situation on a lot of farms is super tight, and my theory is if you can't see a difference in the checkbook with anything you're doing, then I wouldn't do it, because the only thing that's going to matter is the checkbook when money gets tight. So I just, like, some people cover crop and they just let it go and then till it under. I don't know how much money that's making you. It's hard to see in the checkbook. We have theories about that, but what I want to talk about is what the double crop will or could put money in the checkbook. And I'm just going to work through that a little bit. So I have some historical yield data, dry matter per ton on some farms, and typical numbers fairly low. 2021 was very high. We had a super early spring. Everything went, we had a good stands going into the fall, into the winter, and then everything was right this spring. And this farm averaged like 3.5 ton of dry matter per acre. And that's harvesting it like the 15th of May. So it was in, like, rule number one of is right down here. Rule number one is you harvest that crop off at the first good weather window that you have, because if it goes by, you just have garbage. And so you always take it off early as opposed to taking it off late. And so that's why sometimes these dry matter tons are low. It's because they may harvest it on the 9th if it looks like it's going to rain for 3 days, because they know they have to get it off early to have cow feed. So if the weather stays good like it did this spring, you can let it mature a little more and put on some biomass. But if you're not sure if you're going to be able to get it, you have to go get it. And they typically go get it early, this farm, which is why these tonnages are lower, but they still do it every year because it feeds out very well. So yeah, the dynamite comes in small packages thing. It's super digestible. That's the key. When it's harvested early, it's very digestible. If it's harvested late, it's like saw timber, and the cows won't eat it, and your heifers may eat it, but it's rough. So so cost to produce. Oops, cost to produce. So the seed is around $22 to $25 an acre. Seed costs this year on our side of the state was around 22 cents a pound for rye. Triticale is basically double that, triticale. So that's one reason why the farms over here were using rye. Is it's a little less palatable to the cow, but you're not feeding it straight, and the seed costs are much lower, and it matures a week or two earlier than triticale. So if you want to get it off the rye is the way to go, as far as getting it off the field at the earliest time. You do have to fertilize it. You know, give it 40, 50 units of nitrogen in the spring. I have no idea what nitrogen is going to cost next spring, but if it's $700 to $1,000 a ton, the $30 an acre thing will probably change. So it will change. 100 pounds, yeah, it'll be $70 a ton. $70 an acre if it's $700 a ton. If you put 100 pounds, 150 pounds down. So you do have to do some extra work in the fall, which is like you have to weigh the cost of the feed against the extra time. You know, you gotta seed it, you gotta roll it, pick the stones. It's a stony field. I don't recommend stony fields, obviously. And then you have to harvest it in the spring. So you get a little bit of that back if you don't do conventional tillage on the field and you just go in and no-till it. So, which has worked well, because you got a good root structure there from the rye. It's not the same as if that field was bare ground. The soil will break up a little bit better with the root structure there. So, so the cost to produce an acre, you know, 20, 25 bucks for seed, $30 to $60 for fertilizer, and your time and effort to get it in and get it off. Government programs, there's Sarah knows more about this, maybe the actual amounts than I do at this point, but state programs, $40, $45 an acre, federal programs, depending on how you categorize yourself and what program you're into, can be anywhere from, I think, 40 to 60, 70, 80 bucks an acre. I'm not sure. It depends on how you'd have to work with your people that do that to help you figure out what the best way to do that. Then you can capture some by doing a reduced tillage rate on the same acres. Get you, I don't know what that's at. These are old numbers. I think it's less than that now. It was 16. They keep cutting the rates for some reason, which
Still
I don't
16.
understand.
No-till is 16.20 an acre.
Okay, says still is. Okay, and then there may be other options that you can roll in, like adaptive management, and to get that number up a little bit higher. So you get paid about $45 to $80 to plant it, and it costs you 60 to 75 to grow and harvest it. So it's not overly expensive to do, and if you do it right, you will, you know, you'll get quite a bit of value out of that. So we talk a little bit about considerations, and as I've already mentioned, the double crop feed is much more digestible to your cows, which is really helpful in the summer when it's hot. They'll work less to digest the food, and that'll help them hold production during the summer heat, because the stuff is so digestible that it'll break down easy in a room, and they don't have to work hard to do that. So it'll reduce grain inputs, reduce corn inputs, and be really high quality forage if it's put up right. And it is more field work in the fall, but a little less in the spring with regard to no-tilling, as I've already mentioned. And again, rye is ready to harvest about a week or 2 weeks before triticale. So that just means that it's going to be closer to maturity. Not that you want it mature when you harvest it, but it'll put on more biomass, quite a bit more than triticale. So more considerations. Storage is an issue. You want to treat that with Pro, and you've got to get it fed out. You've got about 4 months to get rid of it because of the acid levels, because it's so wet. And it's really hard. Like I said, it's really hard to dry. So you have to count your loads, and then as soon as it's done fermenting, start feeding it out. And on average, you can gain 2 to 3 pounds of milk per cow. with it because it's so digestible, and the cows will hold production better in the heat, which is really important and when we get these hot summers. So again, it should be rolled after seeding to smooth the ground for the mowing in the spring and improve soil to seed contact. It also pushes down stones, which are definitely going to be a problem for the mower if the field has rocks in it. So I had a farm this fall that seeded, and they couldn't get a roller for 3 weeks probably, and the rye was up, and it was a carpet over the whole field. It was green, and they go, should we roll it? And I said, well, you can't mow it if you don't roll it, because you guys didn't pick the stones, so it's going to be useless to you unless you do roll it. So they went out and rolled it, and like 3 weeks after it'd been up, the ground was still a little bit soft, and it didn't bother that rye crop at all. You can't even tell they rolled it, and they put a big roller on it. They borrowed someone's Pro-Till something Dangleman rig, and they smushed all the rocks down, and the crop is doing fine. I would say for rye, the same thing if you're spreading manure on it. You know, when it's just out of the ground, up 3-4 inches is when you don't want to mess with it. But once it's up 6 to 8 inches, it can take manure, and it can take a lot. It's a pretty rugged, durable crop. So,
So Jeff,
gotta use,
sorry, it seems like people are needing to rent a roller. Is that's not a piece of equipment that most farms have?
So we've been borrowing them from other people, right? Not most. I've had two farmers borrowed it from 2 other farmers that had them. So of the 4 farms that did it, 2 of the farms borrowed the other farm's rollers. I think paid them like $10 an acre or something for rent or something. Yeah. So I mean, there are some out there, and it's not like it's gonna break. It's a pretty low impact piece of equipment. It's just rolling across the ground. So the merger is kind of the harder thing, I think, to get, is the merger. But a lot of people have those too, and on a couple of farms that have been doing it for a few years, they just hired it done until they bought their own merger. And again, I guess the last thing on this slide is you're better off doing it on well-drained fields to make sure you can get on them in the spring. The other, I had something else along those lines. I forget, but better drained fields are, if you use triticale, because some people will try to sell you triticale. Triticale doesn't like wet feet. So if you have wet holes in the field and you get wet, you'll get winter kill with triticale, and rye will do a lot better under varying conditions than triticale, which triticale is just a cross between rye and wheat, to try to make the rye taste better. I think that's why they did it. But so anyways, better drained fields is better for getting it off in the spring. Environmental considerations for folks. It does cycle nutrients better on the farm. You're going to scavenge those nutrients that are left over from the corn crop, and the more digestible the feed is, the better feed efficiency you're going to have, and less feed per pound of milk, less purchased grain, which is less importation of nutrients. It will improve your farm's mass nutrient balance because you're growing more feed and purchasing less feed. You get a better cover crop out of it, because you're going to seed it at a higher rate and take better care of it, because you're doing it kind of as a cash crop. And it definitely reduced soil erosion and field runoff, because the fields look really good when you're double cropping them, and you'll get potentially improved water quality benefits. And also, it keeps the soil biology working year round, which I think is important. I think as we do this more, the folks that are doing it, those fields actually produce better corn crops than they used to. because the soil biology is active much more of the year when you're growing stuff on all year round. So there's that. And agronomically, as I mentioned, triticale doesn't like wet feet. We have pictures. We tried it early on some farms, and they did it. Everything looked super good in the fall, and it was all winter killed in the spring because the fields are just too wet. Rye matures earlier, which is important for trying to get that stuff off so you get your corn in. If using fall applied manure before planting cover crop, down here on this side of the state, we want you to wait a little bit to plant the cover crop because we don't want that much fall growth. And if you put manure down and then cover crop into it, it'll grow like crazy. And there's a chance that it could smother over the winter. I don't know if that's as much an issue in a normal year in the Northeast Kingdom. Your growing season's quite a bit shorter. So I don't know if that plays in the Northeast Kingdom. And you can't forget to add nitrogen in the spring. And it's whatever nitrogen the plant doesn't use will just go into your corn crop that's going on right after. But by putting nitrogen on in the spring, we can hopefully drive up those protein numbers in the crop. So the other thing to consider is that if you grow a good cover crop and you harvest it, you're taking a pile of nutrients off the field, and so you're potentially leaving your corn crop short. So you have to pay close attention to the nitrogen needs of your corn crop after you take off the cover crop. And what we've seen, I have pictures, I don't have them here, but in the early days, we'd have skips in the field where we double cropped and we didn't seed, and the corn would be like a foot taller where the skips were because the cover crop didn't scavenge the nutrients. So like you just have to pay attention, do a PSNT test and make sure that you're adequately fertilizing the corn crop, given the fact that the cover crop took a bunch of nutrients off that field. Now, if you're tight on land to put manure on, this is good news because you're actually taking a whole nother crop off, and your planner can write that into the plan, which will provide you a way to apply more nutrients, which the plant will need. So that there's that benefit or concern depending on how you're looking at it. So in conclusion, the double crop offers the dairyman a way to provide excellent forage to the cow using land that would otherwise be unproductive during the winter. And depending on how much you grow, those benefits could last all summer long. Double cropping also helps the dairyman work with other water quality stakeholders to address water quality issues. It's the best possible cover crop, which minimizes the risk of soil erosion associated with growing row crops while increasing the farm's overall profitability. And putting up excellent forage is never an accident. Management's the key to the success of the system. So I guess I think that's my last slide. Yeah. So I don't know where I'm getting back to. I just unshared my screen. So where does that leave me, Sarah?
Well, do you have any information? I was curious to hear, I think you had some results on shorter day corn varieties. Do you have anything
Yes.
you could share with us?
I do. So I don't have a slide that I can throw up because it'll take me too long to find it, but Heather's been doing research for a long time, growing short day varieties corn. And basically corn yields are very heavily dependent on the variety that you're growing. So you can have a 91-day corn that'll out yield 100-day corn if it's the right variety. And finding those varieties, you can work with your seedsman and get some varieties, but really you have to do the work on your own farm to figure out what grows best. And Heather has a report that comes out every year, our team does, that gives you the yields of a bunch of short day corns, medium day corn, and long day corns, and done in Elberg. So it's done at a little different climate and different soil too. It's like a Benson soil, which is a nice soil. But the seedsmen that sell seed, like generally speaking, a longer day corn will yield better than a short day corn, but that's not like a mutually exclusive data set. There's plenty of short day corns that will yield very well. And I have a list of corns that I can get to people. I just don't have it handy right now. So, it sounds like people are growing the length of day corn. If you're planting around May 10th to starting planting around May 10th, and you're harvesting around the third week of September, then to me, you can double crop. It's fine. You may end up, you'd want to set the system up so that you're harvesting. You want to do it on the fields that you're going to harvest first. And then the next year, they're going to be the fields that you're going to plant a little bit later in your planting cycle. So you're going to harvest them between the 10th and 15th of May. And then you're going to plant them 10th, 15th of May and harvest them. Try to get the corn off by the end of the beginning or during the third week of September. And that'll work fine. So the only bad thing that can happen is, say you plant BMR corn and conventional corn, and the fields that you want to double crop have all BMR corn on them, and the BMR corn won't dry down, then you lose the window. You can't obviously you can't harvest the corn if it's not ready. So it's about planning how you want to structure that. And the people that do it, that need feed and do it, are doing it every year. They've changed their system to accommodate it because the results are really good. So I'll say that.
Does anybody have any questions for Jeff?
Yeah, Jeff, Brad Maxwell. I can't see your slide. So what size farms are you talking about when you're mentioning these?
Okay.
Are we talking 100 acres or 20 acres? Or 400 acres?
So we have one farm that has 50 acres that's well suited to it. So they do that every year on that 50 acres. We have one farm that does 300 to 500 acres of it. And then we have another farm that just started this year. They did 60 acres. And another farm that does like 50 acres. So the couple of farms are just trying it out. One farm is limited by what land they have that works well on. And the fourth farm does all they can to a certain date, and then they stop doing it. So it depends on this year they did a little bit less because they mixed up where they put their corns, and the land that's suited to double crop had a longer day corn on it. So they were a little bit limited in what they could do. They probably did 350 acres, where last year they did like 500. It takes extra people to do too. You gotta have someone out there picking stones if you have stony ground, and you gotta have someone seeding, someone rolling. It's it's a little bit of extra work. But they get, I think this spring, that one farm, they got like 187 loads of feed off and fed their cows all summer with it. And then, you know, they
Yeah.
saved them.
Yeah. So someone like myself who custom hires a lot of that work done, you know, those are tight windows when, you know, we wouldn't be able to, we were asking someone to come in and mow and chop grass a week or 10 days or 2 weeks before we'd be typically cutting our first cut. You know, we're at the end of May, first cut. And those are the, you know, the issues that I would have. And it sounds like we would need a separate bunk to put this, you know, rye, rye in. We couldn't bury it like we do, you know. We just have, you know, large grass bunks and large corn bunks. And we don't have a small, we have to
They
keep it
just-
separate, it sounds like.
They just put it in a pile, because by May, there's room in the bunk for feed. And they just,
Yeah.
these guys are just putting it in a pile in the bunk somewhere and feeding it out from there. You don't want to bury it, but if you put it in a corn bunk, it would be gone by corn time. Actually, the one of the farms, they hire all their mowing done, and getting the mowing done is actually easy because it's a little bit before first cut. So getting the mowing part done, I don't know about I would imagine the chopper too. I mean, I guess that's stuff you'd have to work out. Yeah, they don't want to.
Right.
They don't want to drive, but if they're doing all your work, they will. They may not be happy about it, but they're not going to tell you, no, we're not going to do your work. You got 700 acres there, you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
That-
So,
They'll make it work if you want to make it work.
yeah, I didn't see your numbers on moisture. What you said it's wet. What
It's
is wet?
20
Is it
25, 20 to
25.
30, 20 to 30, but
Yeah.
in the mid 20s, it's wet.
okay?
It's wet. That's why it's got to be fed out and
It
cows
mixed in.
do milk on it though. They really do.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
it's hard to dry. It's really hard to dry.
Right.
Nicole
I'm
or
good.
Nicole or Merle, do you have any thoughts or questions? Or anybody else? Doesn't have to be the farmers, but anybody on the call. I can't see any of your faces. You're all hiding from me, so.
Do you feel like if you already have extra feed, it's worth the time and money to do this?
That's a good question. It is, it does make good feed. But is it worth the effort? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Everybody manages their farms differently. I'm not sure if how hard people want to work to put up good feed, but I guess I present it as an opportunity to put up good feed, which could result in the ability to sell feed if you had extra feed. But a lot of people that have plenty of feed, I do know that I've talked to about it, aren't interested in double cropping because it is extra work and they already have enough feed. So it's an individual farm basis, I think. You have to evaluate the cost versus the benefit. And if you think you'll make more money doing it, then I would do it. If you think it's not going to make a difference or what it's going to cost you, then I wouldn't do it. And I think every farm's different. You know, picking up a couple pounds of milk over the summer and holding milk better in a heat wave has benefits, and that's tied, I'm pretty sure, directly to the digestibility of the feed, not the protein level of the feed. Because you can make a lot of milk with this stuff at 16% protein, which is really just what a grass crop is. But you aren't gonna get 2 pounds of milk out of a grass crop. It is what it is. It just has to do with digestibility. So it's up to the individual farm. I guess I would try it on a few acres and just see how it goes. But I don't know your soils. I don't know your fields. If you got stones everywhere, then it'll quickly out. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it on stony fields. If you have nice rolling light soil fields, it's probably not that much effort. Stones are the problem, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, doesn't seem like we have any other burning questions. I can just talk a little bit about program. Get my screen shared here. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Thanks. Can't see what you can see. Sorry. What slide do you guys see?
Number 1.
Okay, hold on. Is that changing at all? Is that advancing?
Nope.
Oh, weird. Let's see. Did that change for you?
Yep.
Okay. So there's now, like I was saying, the option to access cost share to implement this double cropping system, which might require a little bit of a shorter day corn. But I also would say if farmers don't want to, sign up and commit to this, there's also still technical assistance resources in terms of like having Jeff and I come to the farm and talk about this and not have to sign up for a contract for this. But I think there's just sort of general support. But if people are interested in signing up, there is now this option to have a cost share contract to do that. And so the area, like I said, that we'll be focused on is in the Memphremagog and Tomahovia watersheds in Orleans County. The payment rate is $53 per acre. So when Jeff was talking about conservation practice funds that are available, that is now an increased dollar amount that you can kind of stack those conservation practices together, which would include this foregone income payment at $53 per acre. And we have set it at up to 50 acres. So if a farm just wants to do 5 acres, 10 acres, or the whole 50, we can accommodate those differences depending on what fields might work for the farm, and sort of like what Jeff was saying, kind of what's good for the particular farm. And it is a 3-year contract, so we're asking people if they want to sign up for it that they commit to 3 years, so that we can see how things go over the course of 3 years. And then so I just had listed here associated practices, like Jeff was saying earlier. This really works best on a no-till system, and the payment rate for that is $16 per acre. There's a crop rotation payment that can be paid. Sometimes row arrangement can be paid. Changing the rows works for the cropping system. We also intend to do soil health management plans with farms that sign up for this. Excuse me. And so that isn't something that necessarily gets stacked in terms of like payment per acre, but that is something that we would like to work with farms in this program on, which would include soil health testing to kind of feed into that soil health management plan. So this morning I looked at what the total amount per acre was, and it came out to $120 per acre with a cover crop, a reduced till or no till, and then plus the foregone income. So that's just a dollar amount that is something to think about. And so for this program, in order for the $53 per acre foregone income rate to be paid, we would certify that the cover crop is on, that is seeded by September 21st. So I know that that's a really tight window given, like a year like this year, that's not going to be feasible, which is again why we are kind of talking about considering different varieties of shorter day corn so that that can be, more feasible. So, and then in terms of like different crops, Jeff talked about there are these 3 different crops that are available. Jeff, it seems like rye is the one that you most recommend. The cover crop planting rate, so we have to follow the NRCS guidance at least 75 pounds per acre, but it sounds like Jeff recommends, did you say 120 or 110?
No, I would say depending on the date, like 75 would be the minimum, and then I would tend to be more like 100. So you could go 120. I mean, it's not going to hurt anything. It's just I don't know if it's needed, but 100 is a good number to shoot for. To get, like, again, I had a slide. I don't know why it didn't come up, but I don't know where it went. But I had a slide on tillering, and tillering is, I don't know if folks know what that is, but it's the rye or these winter grains put out tillers, which basically turns one seed into 5 or 6 plants. And tillering's got everything to do with the date that you plant it. And the later you go into the fall, the less it tillers, which means the less plants you're going to have in the spring. So
The less biomass you have on the
the less biomass you're going to have. So planted early, you can go with a little less seed, and tillering will do its thing. Once you get into the 3rd, 4th week of September, which this program wouldn't provide for, you don't get the tillering, so you have to add a bunch more seed in. So that's why the cutoff is important, September 21st, because you're going to still get the benefit of the tillering. And that's why I would go with probably around 100 pounds at that date, and that'll give you a really good amount of biomass.
So the other thing we're asking for interested producers that want to participate in this is to provide us with just some information about how the practice is going so that we can track it over the 3 years so that we can, report out at the end how this practice can or cannot be feasible in the Pembina watershed. So that would be a requirement actually for payment and certification. So it would be this 21st date and then also providing us with some records. And so a couple people have asked, so what's the penalty if the corn's not ready and I don't harvest it and I don't get my cover crop on by the 21st? What am I going to be penalized or whatever for that? And the answer is no. We just wouldn't pay on the $53 per acre for that practice. So it's similar to other practices within our CS contract. If you're not able to get it in, we simply don't pay on it. And same thing on the other end. If for whatever reason you're not able to take that opportune window in May to harvest the cover crop, there's no penalty on that end if you're not able to harvest it. Really, this program is about getting the cover crop on the 21st because this funding source is really geared toward the natural resource benefit. So, and then a couple other people have asked, if I want to graze it rather than harvesting it and putting it up, that again, it's whatever happens on that spring end, we're still going to pay that $53 for seeding by the 21st. So it's fine if you can work out the details of getting your cows out there and harvesting it by grazing it. So so that's basically the nuts and bolts of it. I know that there's a lot more to it, of course. And so, Jeff, I think we would want to work with people, ideally, in the next few months to go out on the farms and look at particular fields and see what may or may not work. Applications are due February 11th, so we do have a little bit of time. I know everybody is ordering their corn seed now, so I probably will kind of get on the horn with people and try to set up some of those technical assistance visits to see if this is something people want to move forward with. So that's all I have. And it looks like Megan has a question.
Hi, I just had a quick question about this feed improving feed efficiency. Do you have any information about it improving butterfat content in milk as well?
I do not have that. I don't know. I guess the only thing I would say is if you're feeding a higher forage diet, then I think that typically your butterfat would trend up. But I can't say that because you're doing this, you're going to have higher butterfat. I can't make that claim. So there's a lot of things that influence butterfat, and I don't think it's going to depress it, but I can't say that it's going to improve it. It just improves feed efficiency because the cow is going to be able to utilize the feed better because of the digestibility. That's what I'm saying. I'm not, and she's going to be able to utilize a higher percentage of what she's eating. So that's where that's coming from.
Well, that's kind of all we had for today. I don't know if anybody else has any burning questions, or if Jeff, you want to mention anything else?
I would have one comment on the grazing. So if you put down 100 pounds of say rye, and in the spring you want to graze it, and you let it grow, I don't know, 12 inches high, 18 inches high, and then you turn your cows out on it, they're gonna make a big mess out of that. And then when you go to do your corn after, you're gonna have headaches. So maybe grazing on a field that you're planning on converting to grass, and you're gonna have to do a lot of tillage and all to get it into shape for seeding down. But I don't recommend grazing on a field that you're gonna turn into corn, because I had a farmer do that this spring. We did 100 pounds of rye, and then he turned his herd out on it. They didn't eat it all, so you had, and they did mat a bunch of it down. He didn't use really the best management practices with grazing, and the cow stompled all that rye down into the field, and he had a bear of a time trying to get his corn planted into that. Cost him a lot of money. So I would weigh that out. Like I suppose if you grazed it, flash grazed it, small areas of it where they ate it all down every day, and you gave them some new stuff. But
Right.
where they're trampling it into the ground, it just makes a mess, and the ground doesn't dry out. And yeah, I'd be careful about it. That's all.
Okay, well, I guess I'll keep looking to follow up with people, and we'll see where it goes. And this RCPP program is available for the next 5 years. So even if folks don't sign up this year, it will be available again for sign up in the next coming years. So. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yep. See you guys.
Thank you, Jeff.
See ya.